Hi, how are you? Talking to a fellow Springhouse resident.
Yes, I know what
Yeah. How was the games night?
Not real good.
Yeah, that's what Shannon was saying.
Yeah, we haven't found it for you. We've got such a combination.
For one thing, it needs to be over in our area.
Yeah, that'll probably help.
Because I would have walked down, even if I didn't participate in the games, I would have walked down.
Yeah.
But it wasn't worth my time.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. I kind of was thinking the same thing too. And I know Shannon's thought was the format she wanted to use with 6 tables and stuff, so space-wise, it worked out better here. But I think you're right.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi.
How are you?
How you doing? So that's how you're right.
Nice to see you. No, you're fine.
Is it open?
You're good.
Well, not now, because you're not.
We can do that too. So
No.
No, we're happy to.
We've been doing contractor talk with running your business, and then soon we're getting into what we're doing today, the residential, like why we do how, who, what, why, how.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, and that's through what platform are you using to do that?
We do internet, and I load on YouTube because usually it lasts longer than 10 minutes.
Okay. That's great. Oh, so that's
that was one. There was one. Right, there used to be one here. But
I haven't done it.
did you? So you won't do that.
Let me call down and see.
So do all the social networking and all that fun stuff now? There's a lot more information on it.
Exactly. You can watch in the future, or Victoria has a team members, or some residents who are looking for jobs for the, and then we'll have your contact
Because I have a resident Daybreak, but I also
Oh,
I paint a lot of house. It's a book cover. I've been thinking, because I learned with my daughter's schoolmates, with both their schoolmates, I wanted to talk about painting really spark something with people. I don't know why. They can take it looking forward and doing something. So when you guys looking for events, you guys ever need paint or warm ideas, because I think it's just being such a kid. That's why we moved back to the community here. Please reach out to me. One of my cards is up there, but we just have so much. I have 15 years of bicycle, so it isn't just the project that you completely change my mind. I'll text you because I text everyone that gives me a card. It's easier to know who they are, what they do. But no, we've done some school programs from kids' school. We've done a vegetable school, not just this classroom, where we discuss like why do I explain like so kids but how you want to talk about why? Because I do design work like circles and squares. Minecraft 3D image where it's like a one square, like how to determine where your greens and blues, all that fun stuff. So, I know that we did like the chalk art and stuff. Like there's a little activities we can paint. I'm like a very okay. Which I love, but I always have like it's actually mad and then it does that. I can learn to make we can make something need to fix or grow.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So you're Sarah and you are
Shay.
They took out some number that nobody was on.
You're gonna get a text from this like
Most of the same.
So it's not all of it. So
Thank you everyone for attending today. We're going to get started. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical issues, but we seem to have overcome those. My name is Suzanne Gambrulis. I'm the community manager here at Daybreak, and we're happy to kick off this year's Lunch and Learn season with some maintenance planning. And we have two special guests with us today, including Adam and Bradley from Certified Pro Painters and Robbie Smith of Splash Painting, who will be joining us in a little bit. I do just want to take a moment and recap the Lunch and Learns, which are part of Daybreak's educational series. These sessions are hosted by the Daybreak Community Association and different vendors that we work with, as well as partners within the community. The idea for the series began as a way to offer information to residents and tools to residents in hopes that they could benefit from knowledge and the interaction with industry professionals. Although we don't endorse any of the vendors that participate in the Lunch and Learn series, we do hope that everyone finds them as a great resource. So at this time, I would like to invite representatives from Certified Pro Painting to talk a little bit about maintenance planning, painting, and all other things there. Thank you.
So my name is Adam. I'm with Certified Pro Painters. I've been in the paint industry about 20 years. I started working for Sherwin-Williams, and I worked there for 14 years, and then was recruited by Certified Pro to come run the commercial side of things. I do all the commercial estimating for Utah. So we paint everything from little door frames in a commercial space or managed space to high-rise hotels. We do large tilt-ups, we do pretty much everything architecturally you can think of. We are, commercially, we have about 60 painters available, and residentially, we have 5 estimators, and we have about 150 painters available. Not necessarily individual crews, but 150 individual crews, but groups of crews that are anywhere from 2 to 8 people. So we can tackle large and small projects. Utah-wide, we did about 3,000 projects last year. This year, we're growing, and we will do about 4,500 projects. So we have the bandwidth to do a lot of work. Brad I can let you jump in and talk if you want, or I'll just do it. I feel like I can speak loud enough for everybody to hear. If you need me to talk louder, let me know. We have 5 residential painting estimators, and we service anywhere from Logan to St. George. And so you'll see Brad focuses mostly in the Daybreak area and West Jordan, and so you'll see his face around here and his expertise. He's been with the company for a long time and seen a lot of projects. We were asked to come and talk today about a maintenance schedule and some of the things that you'll see with painting. Unfortunately, painting is a maintenance thing. It's not something that just you do it once and you forget about it. It is something that has to be kept up on. The #1 killer of paint jobs in Utah is water. Our sun does a good amount of damage, but water, people tend to let sprinklers just go to town on your house. And so everywhere where a sprinkler can hit is going to have water damage. And we can talk about that a little bit more as things come up. But we have a list of paint problems that people tend to run into. And some of these, this is just on our website, and everybody can go look at this. But some of these things will not apply to Utah because we have a drier climate than other regions in the United States. So we'll skip over some of those. But I'll go over some of these things. The first one we'll talk about is water damage. And you've all seen it where you can see on wood fences is probably the worst thing. When we're staining wood fences, they tend to take a lot of abuse because sprinklers will come up and hit it, and you'll see that nice arc pattern. You're smiling because you see that every day. That is the #1 killer because it actually washes the stain. If it's a semi-transparent stain, it washes the stain out of the wood. Or if it's painted, it will get behind the paint and it will push the paint off the building or off the fence. It also works the same on hardy board, on brick, on any surface that's painted can be damaged by water. Unfortunately, what happens is paint, even though it's a solid surface, it is still very porous. It still lets moisture go through, and unfortunately, it's not a waterproof forever product. It is something that it's meant to breathe, so your house doesn't mold from the inside out. It's meant to let water out, but it also lets a little water in. It's horrible the water's just bad all the way around. So stay out of the water. If you have a house that your sprinklers are hitting it, or your downspouts aren't directed properly, or your drip edge on the edge of your house is not properly installed, you're going to have some issues because water will find a way to even make its way uphill. A lot of people don't understand that, but water can defy gravity. It's called water wicking, and it will drag itself uphill, and it can find its way behind things. We did a project out in Stansbury where we had to waterproof the brick because the brick that they built the fire station out of was super porous, and when the sprinklers would hit it, over the years, water made its way all the way through that 8-inch wide brick into the building, was causing the building to have mold problems on the inside from the sprinklers. So we had to go waterproof the brick because it causes issues. So as we go through this list, you'll be able to see it up here, exactly what I see in my phone. That doesn't change that way. Okay. So some of these things will apply to you guys, and if you have any questions, let me know. We can talk about them and stop and expand on it, and make it bigger, and so you can see what it is. Some of these things will and will not apply to your situation. The first one that we have on here is alkali resistance. So if you've got hardy board, that's a cementitious board. It's just basically compressed cement, and they mold it with like a wood pattern in it, or sometimes it's just smooth. But Daybreak has a lot of this stuff. And what happens when alkali resistance is a problem, you get a little bit of, Amy's texting us, we'll get rid of that. You'll get a little bit of they have too much lime in the product when it's being built. And so there's nothing wrong with your paint at this point except for it's reacting with the lime. It's not horrible, it won't ruin the life of your paint, but it's going to have a type of a film that when you rub your hand on it, it's going to be a little bit chalky. And so that's just part of the process, and it can be washed off and then coated again. And once it's done reacting, it won't do it again. Alligatoring is oh yeah.
So how long should you expect that to go on, the chalk?
So it depends on how much lime, or on how much too much of lime they put into the.
So in other words, if you paint it once and it comes out, if you go over it and repaint it, is it possible
It's
to
done.
come out again?
It's done. No,
Okay.
it's a reaction with it'll just wash out basically. So it's a one-time thing. Yes.
How often do you have to paint the first floor? And how would you know?
So that's a whole bag of questions. So hardy board it's not a forever maintenance thing. Your paint job, the hardy board will last a long time. So as long as you maintain the paint, every 6-ish years is a paint cycle. Your hardy board will last a long time. Now, the paint will last about 6 years. That's about what everybody does cycle-wise. But the color may or may not last that long. Colors are susceptible to fade, and so if you touch up a red or a bright, basically any color we have here in Daybreak, it's not going to touch up the same way. You're going to have a lot of fade, especially on west and south facing. You're both shaking your head, yeah. Yeah. So because paint fades out, it's still structurally sound, so you're good to go, but it doesn't look as good as it once did. And I'm sure you've seen, red is the worst. Red fades. Within 6 weeks, you've got a different color, and touch-up is horrible. And so whenever you're painting like a touch-up on a red, you might as well just paint the whole side because so yeah.
When you say hardy board, is that the pre-colored cement boards?
So yes and no. Some of it in Daybreak was pre-colored. Some of it comes factory gray, and then they paint the house to the color that was chosen.
The one that we're all new construction, right? It all comes in color. It's supposed to be.
Yes. So that is the stuff that is hardy board that's pre-painted at the factory.
Okay, so that's actually got a paint coat on it. It's not the
It's not all the way through. It's not a block of color. So it's just on the surface, and it won't last forever. The factory finishes are made to be worn down and recoated faster than a top coat. Between him and I, we do. I mean, he's a painter too, so he understands what's going on here. But you'll repaint hardy board a lot more often than you would like an aluminum siding, because that's a material that will fall apart quicker than like an aluminum siding would. There's no aluminum siding in here, but that's just another thing. Next question. We're good? Okay. So blistering is our next problem, and you'll see this a lot. What happens is we get ambitious and we go out and we paint our front door, and we paint it when it was too hot. And so your door should not be hotter than what you can handle touching. If you can touch it and it's hot to the touch and burns your hand, don't be painting that, because your paint dries on the top faster than it can dry underneath, and it will blister the paint and it'll come right off, and they dry little bubbles, and then you can't sand them out. It's time to replace the door. So don't paint when it's hot. Blocking is probably not a major concern here. It's still going to happen in some places. So when you paint a door jamb or a window, and then you close that door or window before the paint is cured, it will dry the touch, but it's not cured yet. The blocking is when your paint glues something together. I'm sure somebody's put something on the shelf that was recently painted, and you have to break it off the shelf. That's blocking. That's when the additives in the paint are gluing the surface together. So nothing's cured out yet. Nothing's solid. Paint cures in about 30 days. So if you can leave that cabinet door open or leave the window open for 30 days, it's not a realistic thing. But that's going to reduce the blocking. There are certain paints that you can put things on or close the doors quicker to reduce blocking. We just have to order the right one when we're painting. We partner with Sherwin-Williams. He's got a Sherwin-Williams coat on. When you're tackling projects in your own house or you're having somebody come out and do this, do not settle for a lower quality paint. Talk to any painter, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams. High-end paints make a world of difference. You can't get good quality from Lowe's or Home Depot. I don't. If I'm bidding a project and they want to supply the paint from Home Depot, we're going to charge them more because it takes more work to get that paint to do the same thing. Coverage is bad. It doesn't have the longevity of the paint, so don't settle for a lower quality paint. It's like the platinum level and then your entry level cars. They're just huge differences as far as how it looks overall also. So another problem you have in daybreak or just anywhere is burnishing. Burnishing is something that happens on the inside and the outside of the house on any area that's used. Burnishing is when and the best way to describe it, because I'm sure we've all seen it, is when you take off your shoe at the end of the day and you throw it against the back of the closet because you're upset and it leaves a little shiny spot, or you hit it with you're shaking your head, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or around the corner where a backpack rubs and the paint is shinier, and then you got a nice eggshell finished wall, and you got a little shiny spot where you washed it or cleaned it. That is burnishing, where we actually break the tops of the paint off. Do we have any markers? I can draw it out for you. No markers. All right. So, on a scientific level, paint looks like jagged edges, and when you wash it, paint will, especially if you use an abrasive type of. Don't use 409. That's the worst cleaner you can use. Magic erasers are the worst thing for paint because it takes it off. It doesn't let it get clean. The best way to clean is with a warm soap and water and dab it. That's the best. Don't use don't use Mr. Clean. Those are the worst for your paint job. But your paint on the microscopic level is jagged and it has lots of peaks and valleys. The higher the sheen, the less peaks and valleys you have. So you have a flat has big peaks and valleys, and that absorbs a lot of light. And when you wash a flat, or you burnish a flat with a shoulder or a backpack, that breaks those edges off and lays it down, so it's a smoother finish now. And that can be. Oh, sorry, I thought I heard it. So burnishing is something that you can avoid by not touching the paint or starting with a higher sheen to begin with. It's going to happen outside if you use a flat and you try to touch something up, or kids hit it with a lawnmower or whatever the issue is. If it gets touched, that's what's going to happen. This is happening all over. So this is, oh, that doesn't work very well. Okay, maybe we can see that. Oh, this is not going to work. So this is loss of caulk adhesion. And this happens at everybody's house, mostly on the inside. And it's because your house is moving. You're constantly expanding and contracting. In Utah, we have a 100-degree difference between winter and summer. And some days we're at 0, and then in the summertime we're 106. So that's a huge fluctuation. And everything is moving. So you'll have up to a ½ an inch of movement within the house, in the walls, in the room. And so as your house moves, your windows expand and contract at a different rate than your walls do. And so what happens is that caulking can only move so much. And if they've caulked it with too much caulk, or they didn't do it the right way and put backer rod behind it, what will happen is it's got to tear somewhere. And it never tears where you can't see it. It tears where you can see it. And that's why you get these cracking and these problems. A quality company will come in and will re-caulk those and seal those up. You don't necessarily need to remove all the old caulk, but in some instances you have to, because it just makes it look better. If you go over the top of that, it's not going to make it crack again in the exact same spot, but because your house is cracking or moving, that's why it's going to crack. It's something that's just a maintenance thing you have to do.
But
yes?
Caulking is supposed to be able to take that expansion, right?
Supposed to, yes.
Doesn't it make a difference, like how wide the gap is or something like that?
So there are different quality levels of caulk. Just like we talk about different quality levels of cars, certain caulks will have different expansion and contraction of allowances. So most caulks are going to be anywhere from 3/8 up to, 3/8 is like, you need a better carpenter if you got 3/8 gap. but you're going to have a lot of movement. So if it, I wish I had a marker. I can draw on this. We'll show you. So what happens is, I can draw it here and I can hold it up. You're caulking. Every surface has 3 sides. And so we've got 3 sides to the surface. This is your exposed surface to where you can see. If your caulking touches 3 sides, it's going to tear somewhere. It has to give somewhere. It can't flex that well. If it touches 2 sides, so if they've pushed some backer rod on, if there's a big gap, and they've pushed some backer rod in there, which is a foam, that will allow it to move and only touch 2 sides, because the foam will move and shift because that's not touching the 3rd side. But if the caulking is touching all 3 sides, it's got to tear somewhere, and that's why it always tears where you can see it. But if it's a high quality caulk and it's touching 2 sides, it can move a lot. There are caulks. There's one called Big Stretch. They'll move up to 1 inch. They have those tilt-up buildings that are massive buildings. Right. Those expansion joints, I mean, there's a 3-inch gap on some of those, and you can fill that with a different type of mastic, and it'll work just fine. It'll move and expand and contract.
So how long does a caulking job usually last if it's done?
So you can get a caulking that's 55 year. I've never seen it last 55 year. 10 years is probably a good amount of time to see them last. But if there's such a small gap, like if your window, oh, we lost it. Let's see. If your window is doing this and you're seeing that, there's no way for the builder to put backer rod back there. It's just going to grab 3 sides. And so there's no way to know how much it's going to actually flex, but it will last you.
So what kind of caulk should we use?
So if you got, we use Sherwin-Williams, the Sheerlastic, or not Sheerlastic, the Shermax is a great caulk. That'll expand up to 3/4 of an inch. It's a little bit more, but you're going to get a higher quality, more flexible, longer longevity caulking. It's available in multiple colors because most painters, not all of them, have a caulk mixer that they can mix some of the paint into the clear caulking and color the caulking. So different options out there. So you don't see the caulking or the white. If you get 2 different colors, you don't see the white. Any other questions? Okay. So this one, chalk and chalk rundown. This is a horrible problem, and it's just because of our dry climate. What happens is as paint breaks down, everything breaks down. Your shoes wear out, your car dashboard wears out and cracks over time. Paint wears out and cracks, and chalks. So as things wear out and chalk, this is the paint basically falling off. And so if you walk up to a house that's kind of got a little bit, like a red house is the best way to check this out. You can walk up to the house and rub your hand on it, and there's white dust on your hand. That's chalking, and that can easily be removed. There's different, and that's never going to stop. That's just part of the game of owning a house. But there are different cleaners that you can get that will help take that off, and then there's different additives that marker's great. So there's different additives you can get. One of them's called Emulsil Bond, and that will help glue your new paint to it. It's like super glue. It's an additive. It doesn't change your color, but it definitely does make it stick and just bite right into it. Question? No? Okay. So this is, I don't know if you can kind of tell that picture. So in our houses, as things move in, because our houses are always moving and expanding, you're going to have some cracking, and that's usually, you can find it in bigger walls where you've got a sheetrock that's moved a little bit, or some sort of joint that's newly formed. These are always going to be there. You can fix them and mud them and make them go away, but because the house has decided to flex right there, that's going to be something that just stays. It's going to come back eventually. The only way to fix that is to cut out a piece of sheetrock and reinstall new sheetrock, but because you decide to cut that part out, it's going to crack somewhere else on that wall because it has to move. Hopefully it happens in a place where you don't see it, but usually it's around a doorway, or it follows a weak point in the sheetrock, never in the middle of a wall, but it's just part of the game of life. Did we just die? There we go. This one. So rust. We have metal doors on our garage doors. Doors come from the factory pre-primed, and you can see them. They're on the pool. I just drove past there earlier today, and the pool doors are cracking, or not cracking, are starting to rust out, and it looks like little freckles. Let's see if it'll. So it looks like little freckles, and you'll see it. Initially, you'll just see a little bit on the surface, but it's happening from the inside out. What happens is the door. Love markers. The metal door isn't flat like this. The metal door looks like this. And so when they factory prime it, when it's on a small level, microscopic level, it looks like this. And so when they when they factory prime it, they spray it on there, and it looks good and gray and fancy, but the primer goes on like this. And so you get these little peaks. So these little parts right here, those are the parts that rust out. And that's when you get freckling or peak rusting. And this is easily solved by sanding down and repriming with a rust inhibitor primer. And then you'll cover that with a second layer of primer, and then you can top coat. Doors, especially like on, they're not solid core metal doors. They kind of have like a cardboard type insert to them. Most of our garage doors have that. They will rust from the inside out, and mostly on the bottom where your water can wick up into the doors because there's a seam there. Doors are something that need to be kept up all the time, as well as your door jambs, wood and metal, because they, on the bottom of the door, I'm a very visual person. So on the door frame, you're on the ground, you're gonna have some rusting or some decay of the wood right there, where your snow builds up and that part falls apart faster. It's just part of the game of life. It's just gonna happen because we live in Utah and there's snow. Any questions? Next one, we have biggest. So this is flaking. This is just, we don't have this in Utah. This is, or in Daybreak. This is when paint has just been gone. You've waited too long to paint. There is a window of painting where it will cost you less money because you have less prep time. A house will require prep, doesn't matter how old it is. But if you have an older house or you've waited too long, your price and repairs will go up because you've waited too long. So this is lapping. So this is when you've got problems with the paint not going on evenly. Oftentimes, if a homeowner will do this, they think they can get away with one coat. 2 coats is always recommended. And again, I'm going to have another stupid picture because I like visual things. But 2 coats is always recommended because you're filling in the low spots. You're going to have, and I'm sure you've seen this when you change colors on something, when you've gone from a darker light or light to dark, you can still kind of see through the color, and you can kind of see that once was a black wall, and there's a little bit of gray shadow now. Lapping is when there's not enough paint on the wall, and you can still see some of that color behind you. So 2 coats is always recommended. Wait for it. Okay. So we have this in Daybreak, nailhead rusting. And this is something that happens to not only the hardy, but also to the stucco if they don't caulk the staples that they're holding on the wire mesh on the walls with. Nailhead rusting is an easy one to fix because all you do is you can spot prime those or you can caulk those over. Putty will sometimes fill those in. If you're getting nail hole rusting, it is going to add to the cost of your paint job because it does take longer to fill all those in and take care of those properly. If you don't want to see them, then your price is going to go through the roof because each one of those nail holes that's on your building, it just takes time to fill those in. So if you can handle seeing a few nail holes, your paint job, your repaint price will go down a little bit because the expectations are just a little bit different. Next one. Okay, picture framing and half ending. This is more known when it's more prevalent when we paint when it's a hotter temperature, because the paint will dry quicker. What that is as you roll a wall, or you cut in a wall, most painters will cut in the hard lines first and then roll up to that to try to get the stipple to match. When you paint in a stripe with a brush to cut a clean line, and then you roll into that, this part that's we brushed on will dry at a faster rate because it's a different thickness than with the paint we're rolling on. And so because we're rolling and it's drying at a different rate, it doesn't always blend very well. And so we'll paint different portions of the wall at different portions at different parts of the day to help combat that. But you see it a lot in rooms where it's just fluctuating heat, or the temperature's not warm enough from one day to the next, or the humidity levels are different. Humidity has a big effect on paint also. Last one. Okay, there's two. Okay, surfactant leaching it makes it look like your walls are dirty immediately, and this happens where you've got an interior room or an exterior room where moisture was introduced too early to the paint. Paint takes about 30 days to cure out, and we can't wait 30 days to use the bathroom or to sprinkler, in your yard. But if you can avoid keeping that humidity in there or keeping the water off your house, surfactant leaching is as the paint cures out and as it's getting washed, the chemicals that are in the paint are washing out. You can fix this pretty easy. What happens is it just needs to be washed off with a washcloth. Once it's gone 2 or 3 times after all of it's washed out, then you're fine. It doesn't hurt it. It doesn't affect the longevity of the paint. It's just not curing in the proper order, I guess. And then the last one, with all the wood that we have here and all the things, you have to prime if you're going to repaint. Tannin is basically the tree sap that's in each of the wood planks or boards, and that bleeds through the paint. A nice oil-based primer or kills that will block tannin is necessary to treat the wood, especially any new wood, because that will bleed right through your primers that aren't designed to block tannins. There are not very many primers out there that will do it. A stain blocking primer is different than a tannin blocking primer. You have to use a tannin blocking primer because, and you're buying it, the primer is Kills from Home Depot, or you're traveling up into Park City to get it and you're smuggling it back, because we're not allowed to buy anything from Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore in Utah, or in a couple counties in Utah, because of the VOC laws. But in order to make it work really well, you got to get the right stuff. So you're smiling because I'm sure you've seen this, right? In 2015, the federal government came down and said, this area right here has really bad air. So they're going to force some new laws. They won't allow anything with a high level of VOC content. So no more oil bases, no more high VOC stains. So that changed some of the products we can use. Park City is not affected by that same ruling. So we can buy stuff up there and smuggle it back in. If you don't use the Home Depot Kills primer or something from Park City, it's going to bleed through and it's going to look terrible. So the rest of these ones are not really applicable to Utah. You're welcome to look on the website and check them out. We have a drier climate than what those ones can happen in. Any questions? Okay. We're here to help. If you have any questions, we'll be here for a little bit afterwards, and we're here to make life easier.
How about Trex sticks? Just typical repaint cycle.
So Trex I would recommend against painting Trex. That is a plastic surface that's designed to be maintenance free, especially if you got chairs that you slide across it or a barbecue that drips grease on it. It's just going to cause problems. For that matter, in some way or another, just because we have a rough climate. It just ruins wood really quick. Wood only has a certain amount of life left to it, and so once it's cut, it's not really alive anymore. It's decaying quickly. So. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
You bet.
I appreciate that. We'd like to invite
you. I'll start talking while I walk up here because my voice is just as loud. So, we've been at Daybreak a year, but I lived here 5 years ago, moved back since it's such a wonderful place to raise kids and live here. I left some of these flyers up here, which we'll discuss. And I forgot the gentleman's name, but I really echo everything he said. So, as far as talking maintenance, he hit something you said a few times, but whenever you think of your house, I first want you to think of your house as your car. Would you go 12 months and not wash your car? Absolutely not. You never would. Or would you go to a house, go with your car and just wash your tires? You're gonna wash everything, because dirt, there's so many things. There's salt, dirt. We live in an area that has, it seems like 20 new homes pop up a year or a month. There's all this dirt. There's not a lot of trees around here. That mountain is not protecting you. To echo what you said, red houses, blue houses as well. You'll get a lot of those things. We did 12 homes last year here in Daybreak because we moved in the middle of summer. We were here. We moved our business over here. Every house that we touched had maintenance issues with caulking. And I want to state this: if you're watching this later, do not caulk the seams of your houses. What I'm talking about is when most of your boards are going like this. They're hardy plank, basically. We went on to a job site that a prior painter had gone on to, and the homeowner was worried about the rust nails and how deep those gaps were. The builder intentionally left those gaps. Your house is moving. When that does, you're going to break that caulk seam, and you have a mess on your hands, whether it's a year or 3 years with all these little earthquakes we've been having. It could be sooner than that, which you're getting those splits. So what we did, we had to actually go back on the job site. We had to resand everything and get everything off. So I kind of walk through my process. If I say something, please ask a question. I'll try to speak in full sentences. But when we walk on a job site, the way that Splash does it is pretty easy. I walk through, we point out the things to the homeowner. If you're not there, I snap a picture and send it to you of the troubled areas. I refer to it as marshmallowing. I don't know what the actual industry name is, but if you live here in Daybreak, look on your windowsills or at the bottom, you're going to see your wood expand like a marshmallow. It's been burnt after being there for a minute on a fire. We can't fix that. You've got to replace your wood. It's unfortunate, but the initial, as being a residential repaint, not a new construction painter, I'm walking onto a side just like you are as a homeowner, not knowing what that history is. Was that wood primed before? How long did it sit outside on the road before the builder got to it? Did it sit from January to March? And then now March they're doing it. Was it covered with the proper T-back paper? So there's a lot of things that we don't know. So when we get on, we point all those out. We sand them as best as we can. We use Bondo, not caulk. I've found it works a lot easier for us. As far as longevity, I tell most homeowners after we paint, you're going to get at least 6 years. I try to, but I'll add on to why I say maybe. So we walk around the house first. We point out everything that needs to be done. If there's wood that needs to be replaced, we can do it, but I recommend getting someone else that is their core job, a carpenter that actually does that. And with the homes, we have 3 homes that we're sitting on bids right now in Daybreak that the builder warranty is replacing them. And we'll be painting those this year. They started the process last year. So if you live, I keep saying if, but if you're living in Daybreak and you have these issues, reach out to your home warranty, whether you're a new home build or you're an existing build and you rebought into this house. Don't hesitate to reach out. These builders know that there's issues. Take that time, use your warranty. It's going to put off being painted, but the HOA will happily work with you as long as you've communicated. I don't know if your guys' crew sees this here in Daybreak, but a lot of the rain gutters, if you walk outside and your house starts to bubble up, it's generally underneath the rain gutter or where a downspout rain gutter should be. It's because there's water in there. I'm very upfront with my business, so I'll be honest. We did a house last June. The homeowner just emailed me 2 weeks ago saying, hey, it blistered again on our paint job. Splash offers a 1-year warranty on our basic package of painting, then we offer up to a 5-year warranty on labor. But there's different variables that go inside with that as far as taking care of that. So we're going to point these out, and the prep work, I can paint a house in a day, 1-story or 2-story. But that prep work is going to take me maybe 2 days, maybe 3, depending on how much damage there is. when we replace you, I'll use your pictogram that you have here. Picture this being your garage door that goes out to your backyard or out of your garage, even your front door. But somewhere where you have grass here, these boards tend to just get destroyed in this area right here. So Home Depot and Lowe's now have a PVC type material that we replace those with to help ensure that we oil-based prime them. We don't go to Park City to get it because Lowe's has enough quality that I don't get in trouble with the county on. So there are those things, and if you're a homeowner and you're wanting to maintain your home but not pay for it yet, and you're seeing these issues, they sell Kills in a spray can. It's oil-based. It's like a brownish red almost. You can utilize that. Just get a foam brush to kind of tap it in to push it in, because when you put oil and it's the first shield, it should repel that water out. But not always, because just like anything, it's going to break down. So when we get on a job site after we've looked over your house and gone through what needs to be fixed, we power wash everything. That's the number one maintenance I can tell anybody, is to wash your house. I don't mean blasting it. There's a gentleman here in Daybreak. If you need his information, I cannot think of his name. Johnson's last name. He owns a power washing company. He lives here in Daybreak. He power washes plenty of homes and cars here. He's really good at what he does. We actually hire him out to do some of our power washing for us. And that ties in with what this paperwork is. We, like you guys, use Sherwin-Williams primarily. If someone wants Benjamin Orr, we will go with it, but I'm more of a Sherwin-Williams guy just because I know the product, I know the durability of what I'm going to get. Home Depot and Lowe's, they're great. They're not the worst product, but you'll be reapplying it a lot more times than you would going with a Sherwin-based product. These are at the table, and I have these. I can mail these out to you, but this is just basically going over super paint and this is duration, but there's an emerald urethane as well. When we paint a house, depending on the color, if it's reds, blues, greens, the most popular color this year seems to be gray, different shades of gray. There's green grays and blue grays. If you have a dark pigmented color, we have to prime your house. There's no way around it, because in 3 years, you're going to see that house fade. There's nothing, it's not a painter issue. It's just the sun, the heat, the water, the salt, the smog, whatever it is you want to call it, inversion, that we have here. So just know that if you're going to get in with to paint your home when you're getting ready to, if you have a dark pigmented color, you will need to have that primed. We did one. If you want the address, I'm sure they're okay with it. Their house is green. We primed it. It's bright white now. Beautiful house, but you can't tell. But we, as painters, we're really realistically painting your house twice. So it's a cost thing, but it's a maintenance thing as well. With that, so we'll power wash everything. We remove all the lights, all your address numbers, rain gutters. We will remove things away from the house. The number one issue that we see, like Century Pro said, is if you guys have sprinklers that are hitting your house, you need to move them immediately. I'm sure there's a young man in the neighborhood that wants to make some money, or young woman that wants to make some money for whatever. They can learn how to move these sprinkler heads. They're not that hard, but there's a group of us that know how to move sprinklers. You've got to get the water off your house immediately, or it's just going to create a bigger issue. So as we're walking through the house, after we've power washed and moved everything, we will spray. Majorly we've sprayed every house. If it's super windy, we will roll if we need to. We apply 2 coats as well. We turn our base. I'm giving you too much information on how we apply, but I think it's important. We turn our pressure up, making sure that you're getting quality coats, which goes into what this flyer is super paint is our base paint. It's Sherwin-Williams first premium level, and then you can go up. Like in April and May, we may use resilience because it's more of it repels water because it dries quicker. And then there's emerald, which is the Rolls Royce of painting, I guess, in my eyes. Sherwin-Williams offers a lifetime warranty on that. We offer 5-year warranty on the labor part of it, but there comes restrictions with that. You have to wash your house. I tell people wash the seasons off. It's in our bid sheet. If you upgrade to this paint, your upgrading is, cost-wise, I want to be very transparent in this, you're looking almost $1,200 to $2,000, depending on the size of your house. It's a huge chunk of money. I just saw somebody go big. But you're looking at $90 a gallon paint opposed to $30 a gallon. So there's a reason why. This flyer will tell you this is actually on upgrading the duration, but if you want the emerald upgrade, I have it in an email. I can shoot that over to you on the specs. But basically what you're wanting to do is when summer ends or when winter ends, which is right about now, power wash. And you don't need to get a big power wash. You can buy a wand, hide tools, makes a wand. It's like, I think it's $35. If you can't find them, I can order them for you. That it'll reach the top of these houses. I use them. Sometimes the house is not dirty. That dirty, we'll wash them. There's a soap thing, a soap container. You can add soap if you want it. Please, 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 when you're maintaining your homes, do not use any oil on your house. There was a company a few years ago that was telling people to use a Minwax type oil on your house. Don't, because painters, the issue was, we painted this house and we had taped some stuff off. Normally paint doesn't peel after you've done it. We're using the proper tape. My guys last year on a house, they took some paint off. It peeled off 40 feet of paint. Funny, it was. And it was all trim, and it was both layers. So we contacted the homeowner, we called her, and we'll always fix the issue, but I got to know what happened. And she had said to me, well, 4 years ago, I had someone come out and power wash, and they use an oil, because the concept is that oil will re-energize that color, those pigments. You'll get a letter from the HOA, say, hey, I don't want to paint, I don't want to call Splash or Century Pro, I'll do it myself, and you just throw something on, you Googled, and WebMD Google said, this is how you fix your house. Don't do it. It'll cost you more money. So, and as a painter, I don't know if you guys do, but there's really not a tool that we test for the majority of our houses, we know what the paint is, but if I think I see a weird sheen, we do like an alcohol test on it to see if it's oil. But if it's 5 years old, my testing isn't going to pull it. But the minute I pull a piece of tape off, I got 40 feet of new house I got to paint. So just don't do that. If you have questions and you're in Daybreak, I will answer your questions for you. Even if you're a DIY or do-yourself or whatever that term is, I will answer the question for you, because knowledge is power as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of you people that want to do it yourself, which is great, and there's a lot of you that don't want to climb a 30-foot ladder. I don't blame you. But ask before you start applying these weird things, because you never know what's going to happen, and you could be, like all those pictures that you had, you could be alligating your house, you could be getting dust and not even knowing it, and then costing yourself thousands upon $10,000s of dollars down the road to have us fix those. I was asked to talk about metal. These doors right here, I know you guys can see it on the screen, but metal doors, garage doors, aluminum doors, we primarily use DTM, which is called direct-to-metal paint. It's more of a contractual side of painting, but when we have metal doors, there are a handful, there's actually a lot of homes we're finding now that have real, full, heavy metal doors. We use DTM. We sand everything, we strip the old paint off. It's the best way. We actually remove your door, we put a fake door up. I have a fake door that we install so you're not without a door, so your little ones can run in and out. But we'll put a fake door on, we either leave it there, we'll take it back to our shop, and we'll strip the door, get it with DTM, let it dry for at least 2 days, because I know that when I place that back on, it's dry enough that little thumbprints aren't going to ruin it. And heat with us, in the summertime, generally when school's out, we start our crew at 6 o'clock. I know some of you guys have ran by and saw Splash out there, because come 3 or 4 sometimes, this heat in these shingles get way too hot for us painters, because it's like 20 more degrees up by a shingle. So I was asked to ask this by my crew, please don't talk to us if we're on a ladder. Someone fell last year because the homeowner was trying to talk. It was only like 3 feet, but still. You see us on a ladder, no talking. We don't have our learner shirts, but just, don't for our sake. But back to the metal thing. Sorry, that just came to my head that someone's like, talking about not talking to me on a ladder. DTM it's made to stick to metal. It's a magnetic thing that I don't understand the science. I'm sure these guys know. I just know it works and it doesn't scratch. So if you want to know if it's done properly, if you can take your fingernail and scratch it off, it's alkylate or some type of water-based paint. If it doesn't scratch off, it's oil-based or metal paint. You never want to put oil on metal because it won't work. As far as faux finishing, there's a lot of these houses that you guys have these beautiful, elegant doors. Use Old Masters. They have a proper stain covering, but what we do at Splash is once we stain it, after 1 year, we'll go back and recoat it, because the sun, I don't need to restain the door, but we'll add another coat on to prevent. This is normally in the first part of Daybreak. There's a lot of homes that have wooden doors that we'll go back and we'll I call it reglossing. We regloss the doors. And when you have a paint specialist, whether it's Century Pro, myself, or any of the other painters that come and give you a bid,
talk to them about sheens. Sheen's a huge issue because if you go with high gloss, it's really nice, but you're going to see a lot of the issues. Not that the painter did, we call it sheening, but you're going to see a lot of waves in your paint jobs because these boards aren't straight. Your house is truly always moving without you feeling it. So look at like a low luster or a satin. They're very washable, durable paints. Make sure that your paint company is using these proper paints. And ask, I know it's silly, but I know it happens. Ask your painters if they're watering down paint. I think the very first thing you talked about was water. Don't add water to your paint. I don't care if you need a little, if you like need a quart, go to the store and get it. It's worth the $10 opposed to the $100 that it may cost you to have one of us come back in and paint. But for the most part, that's what we do at Splash. As far as maintaining it, we do kind of leave you with, we're going to start leaving you guys with paperwork that tells you what it is. Also, so you guys know, as far as what we're doing to help, some of the concerns that I've heard from residents as the painter is we're going to let the HOA know your color schemes from now on. I think it's very useful for us and for you. That way, if you ever sell, I know some people have sold their homes or going to sell, like, hey, I need to sell this. The new buyers want to know what color it is. It's a useful tool that we have. The HOA has a color book now. If you're ripped on colors, go to Sherwin-Williams. They have color books or color decks you can get. HOA has them. I have 100 of them, and I'm sure you guys do as well. Because picking the color is the most. I always tell people when you buy a house, you spend $300,000 to $500,000 to $700,000 on this home. You want to pull up to and be like, this is my house. This is what I pay my money for. So as a painter, our first thing that we teach and we do is detail. I want it to be detailed. If you want a certain window, door frame, with a gloss like doors, we usually do high gloss on our doors on exteriors, and then we use either a satin or a low sheen. Some people don't like gloss. We'll mirror it your way. Just understand that this is your home, and that as the painter, we know it's your house, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that it's to your standard and what you want when you sign that contract to buy. So, that's a mouthful. Yes.
So I'm assuming that most of the paint you use, the exterior of the homes is latex.
All of it is, unless I jump up to emerald. Emerald is a hybrid paint. It's an oil water base, but it's an oil that maybe you know this better. It's oil that works with water. How that works, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But it does. It allows more products or chemicals, I'll say, to go into the paint to allow it to last longer. Meaning it doesn't let dust and rocks and grime hold to it.
Is the reason you don't use oil as opposed to latex stuff?
We can't. VOC laws.
That's the 2015, the federal government said you can't use any more oil base.
So before we...
Part of it was just strictly, it isn't even just the volume, just any oil.
Anything with a volume, a VOC, or the volatile organic compound, anything higher than 250 is outlawed.
I don't want to get into politics, but think of the liquor law in Utah. Liquor is only allowed to have, or alcohol is only allowed to have a certain percentage. It's legitimately the same thing. We moved here from Reno, and I did some houses in Tahoe. Nevada and Reno have very strict laws. When we were up there, every day, I had a paint ranger, that's what I call him. He checked my truck. If I had a gallon or more of oil-based paint, it was a $25,000 fine. They're very, very strict with us about it. And honestly, oil-based is nice, but in 4 or 5 years, it's just like when we were talking about decks or any wood that you're going to walk on. There's so much trash on your feet that walks on it. Even oil-based doesn't withstand that. So in Utah, where we have a month, February inversion month, where you're having all that smog sit here, has to go somewhere. Your house is a magnet, whether it's inside your house or outside. You're going to get that. And so I know a few guys back east that do oil because they can, but primarily on that, it's actual wood that you're going to do, but you're paying $2,000 or $3,000 every 3 years just to do it. But if you've bought a paint service from Splash Painting or Century Pro, or you're looking to buy one because either you got the letter for it or you want to change it, maintenance is number one thing. Wash your house. It doesn't need to be power blasted. I mean, I'm looking at, stay this far away from the bottom of your body. And just start at one, just like you would a car, and go. I know it's a little, takes about, I'll tell you right now, for us, and this is not even using a ladder, we have a 2-story home here at Daybreak, I can do it in 45 minutes. So it's not that long of a process. You know, you're watering your plants also, but it does allow that. So, and one thing that we do, we don't, if your fascias don't, and what the fascias, if you go on your porch or look underneath, that lip that goes underneath, we try not to paint those unless they absolutely need to, or we'll try to replace it with the same material. Because when you start painting your fascias, it can sag or it can cause them to crack. So just be careful with how you're doing those. That's just I know a lot of other painters that still paint them. Some do, some don't. That's just a part of our business plan that we don't do that for customers, because I've had some snap on me even the day of painting, because I never know how many layers of paint have been on that. And when you're getting, well, I guess I'll use a marker since they're here. I'm going to erase your artwork. Oh, that's okay. On the bottom of houses, I would love to find a homeowner Daybreak that's less than a year old, or a year or more. On the bottom of your houses, don't mind my drawing, guys. You have your beautiful porch, but most porches have this dressing, I'll call it. It's not that big, but you have this like almost like a crown molding at the bottom of them. This is the #1 place you're going to find issues. You got to keep it clean. If it snows, send little one out there to move it off. You got to keep moving your snow, especially if you've had it repainted. You know, we were painting exteriors into September this last year, and I felt, so if those homeowners, it's only one I'm worried about, that it snowed like a week later and it was like sitting there. So it's important that if you are getting it painted, that afterwards you clear this area off of everything. Now, if you have the issue of the pictures that they showed earlier, if you're having those issues, you can wet sand that piece of wood and go to Home Depot as a maintenance project to just put some oil-based primer on there, and then after a day, I usually like to wait a day after we prime anything if we can, unless it's 65 degrees or hotter, then you can apply whatever paint you have. And I think most of us leave paint for you, so don't ever hesitate to ask your painter, hey, can I get a quart of what you left over? Because you know what, you may want to touch up something or match that color. So I hope that answers some maintenance questions. Yes?
Is the process different with stucco?
Stucco is a little bit different. Daybreak doesn't have a lot of stucco. With stucco, you get the biggest thing with stucco that we have are, I call them finger cracks. If you can stick a pencil lead in it, we need to use elastomeric. Elastomeric is a type of caulk that we use. It comes in either a tube, or you can. I usually brush mine in. So our process that we do a stucco home is, one, we're going to power wash it first. Let it dry for a day. You have to let your house dry for at least a day. Again, if it's over 75, you may get away with it. It just depends on how much humidity is in the air. You got to fill these cracks to help prevent them. I hate to say it, but a good painter will have the brush. There's a certain type of brush, or a particular brush that we use, that mirrors that texture. So once we paint it on, because that's one thing, you don't want to see this beautiful stucco wall, then all of a sudden you have, there's a way to texture it with a rag or a brush, even a sponge if you have the right one. Then we prime it. If you ever change a color, ever use caulk, this is going interiors right now, if you ever fix a hole in your wall because you're moving pictures, you know, you got to make sure that you prime whatever spot you use spackle on. Even though it says 3M makes a great product, it says it's paint in a putty, still use a little bit of primer on it, that area, and then fix it. But when we do these, we sponge them, we make sure they're done right. We back roll stucco, unlike a traditional home. I will back roll it to ensure that it's in there. I use a nade it's pretty heavy duty. That's the same thing with brick. A lot of you guys have brick. I've gotten calls. We can paint brick. We do paint brick. We have to primer that first, which is in a sense water burying that for you, so that the brick, by nature, brick and mortar want to push water out, so we have to prime it. But you can paint your brick. It is paintable. Just get your colors approved by the HOA before you tell me. But as far as that, other than that stucco, that's the only thing that we worry about is what cracks you are. They do tend to gather a lot more spider webs than everything. And usually with stucco, I use a flat based paint. It just seems to get better. So, any other questions? All right, well, thank you. I did leave some business cards next to them. Again, if you guys have questions on upgrading paint, don't hesitate to ask myself. I'm sure Century Pro has similar things. So,
great, thank you. Thank you, Robbie, and thank you to Adam and Bradley from CertPro. We're going to post this information online as well, so any of the handouts and their contact information will be available online. And look for more information coming up shortly on some future lunch and learn